so we are going to we adjourn at 10:12. So we are going to do the approval of the agenda right now.
I'd like to make a motion to move number 9.4 and 9.6 to next meeting.
I'll second that.
Moved by Rachel, second by Linda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
It carries. How about, so I guess I would like to remove item 9.5 as it's not relevant. So could I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Moved by Linda, second by Rachel. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, it carries. So can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Okay, second?
Second.
So moved by Natu, second by Rachel, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, and we have like the board trustees announcements. Meeting.
I will send announcements to Teresa for the minutes, but I just wanna note that the last minutes I put in there, I wanna highlight the success of the San Francisco cheer team that won the national championship. So congratulations to them. So,
I'll send my list to Teresa, but I do wanna mention that I'm working with, Canal Alliance and Parent Services Project on the, census celebration for the end of the month. Right now, assuming it's still gonna be on.
I just recall about SRCS 2023. We had a community workshop last week at Davidson and at Via Vista that I went to. We had a couple others in the district. And then the community, the stakeholders meeting in here, which was full of people.
Thank you. And yeah, I would like to report also, a meeting that we have with the SRSD, about budgeting, and that was, I really appreciate being there actually, so, and also, Multicultural Center of Marine, they had like the new leaders in the canal, so that was really exciting to see as well. So, and I will send the rest to Teresa as well. So, and we don't have, students here tonight? Students, reps,
Trustees.
our trustees are here? No. So, sorry.
Yeah, most of what you said, we had a positive meeting with the teachers union, last week. We had our Together 2023 meeting on Wednesday, so we have 2 more meetings of that to the left. We did instructional rounds at Via Vista, on Thursday morning from 8 to 11 and visited classrooms and gave feedback to the team about that. Saturday, Amy and I have been going to a lot of teacher fairs and career fairs, and it was in Berkeley on Saturday, and interviewing and doing mock interviews for assistant principals and principals, and that was really productive. And that's it.
Thank you. Anything from CSEA?
The only thing I have to
Would you like to move here? Thank you.
I'm gonna make it really short. Just want to say thank you for the summer assistant program again. We have 52 members that have applied for it, and hopefully next year we'll get more. So thank you.
Thank you. SRTA?
Nothing to report.
Thank you. SRFD?
SRFT would like to commend the district for taking serious steps towards cataloging potential budget cuts through the auspices of the High School Budget Advisory Committee. Those 1.3 million in cuts will certainly be helpful to the SRHSD to be in a better position to weather any adverse economic forces and reallocate resources to support the work we do with students. We are especially pleased that the district is moving to align itself with defensible, general accepted accounting principles as suggested by the MCOE financial advisor, and reallocating the cost of the district office based on specific criteria. We would like to remind the same board that if this proposal was presented to the district by the district to the board by 3 years ago, and had the board approved it then, our ending fund balance would be $1.5 million higher than it is today. We'd also like to thank the district for agreeing to conduct an audit to determine the number of our students who reside in other districts. We are concerned that the board has reversed course on some rules for IDTs, and hope that they will abide by their own policy even if the student is deserving. By allowing them into SRCS HSD, we are depriving their rightful district funding they deserve and depriving our resident students the funding they deserve. We are pretty confident based on anecdotal evidence and the statements from many of our students that the number of students attending SRC HSD without our district is quite sizable. We would ask that the board authorize and promote a more efficient way to ensure that all students attend the district in which they reside, allowing students to use former or falsified registered addresses to register and attend our district. They both threaten our basic aid status and hurt schools in their home districts, which benefits no one. As we are approaching the time of budgeting for 2021 school year, we would respectfully request that the district include the adopted budget an increase in their biggest cost item, faculty salary increases as prescribed by the contract language in section 3.2.3. We continually hear that people are the district's biggest cost, yet unlike most other public and private enterprises, SRCS HSD does not budgeted for salary increases for a number of years. We have attended budget advisory meetings for the past 5 years. I'm pretty certain that when we budget for increases in utility costs, maintenance, books, etc., with revenues growing over 5% yearly for the past 8 to 10 years and expected to do so again, it would make sense for the district plan to increase for its biggest expense, people. Sorry it was so quick, but I wanted to get through as quickly as possible. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, now we have non-agendized items for public comment that we haven't addressed before. So I have John Flanagan.
First of all, thank you guys for your service. I know it's difficult, I'm glad that there was a forum here for the community to come and talk. And it's difficult to get some of these issues out. The fact that you listened to everybody, I thought was really good, and it's a start to this discussion. Let me see. So esteemed board members, it's our understanding that the elementary district is facing a decline in enrollment, which will impact us in the near future, causing us to consider budget cuts in much the same way that the high school district is now. Part of the reason that we survived the elementary cuts a few years back was that Mike Wattenpaw and team made good on the same promise that Superintendent Jim Hogapoon recently made at the high school budget meeting, to keep cuts as far away from the classroom as possible. This is an essential goal for both districts. The elementary decline in enrollment should definitely be a factor in the board's decision about making any changes to the elementary high school split of central administrative costs. It's obvious that the financial advantage of the high school district's basic aid status in the past allowed San Rafael's joint districts to support a robust central administration by sharing 50-50 in the cost of it. If that is no longer the case, we are clearly looking at some administrative downsizing and cuts to outside classroom supports. This will be some tough work. No one likes cuts, but we have to be pragmatic and live in our means. It's good for us to work together. It was important for elementary staff to be included in the analysis of the proposed high school budget cuts this year, even though this is not standard practice. I credit Jim, our superintendent, the SRF2, the CSEA, and the board for this. Not only did this support unity in San Rafael, but it also enabled all of us to see the potential effects on real people and programs as a result of the many proposed cuts. A lot of the options did not look great, and we got to discuss what folks at the high school can live with. At my table, for example, we discussed the concerns that SRPE teachers have with regard to the proposed PE waivers and the possible course offerings at SR. At my table, we also agreed that recommending a freeze on high school teachers or classified salaries was outside of our purview. These are negotiated issues, and a budget committee was not the place to determine such things. Having said that, I must say this. The budget committee was also not the place for people to make a line item percent recommendation on the split between the elementary districts and the high school district's share of administrative costs. As with salary negotiations, this was outside the purview of a high school budget meeting attended by just a few token elementary representatives. The committee had no business making such a recommendation, and this should be taken into account as the board considers this issue. At the high school budget committee meeting earlier in February, Doug Marcon showed us a chart that indicated that the high school and elementary revenues used to be far apart, but now they're much closer together. He implied that we're economically in the same boat. Then Doug went on to say that the elementary and high school districts should not unify because the basic aid status of the high school gives them a significant per pupil advantage in revenue. You can't have it both ways. Either the high school is richer in revenues and therefore should pay around half the cost of San Rafael Central Administration, which arguably spends equal time in both districts, or our local 3 San Rafael school districts, Miller Creek, SRHS, SR Elementary, are so close in revenue we may as well benefit from the sharing of resources, consolidation of administration, and the additional state monies that were provided in order to equalize the staff salary schedule when we unified districts. We certainly understand if the board is not currently thinking in the direction of unification because A, it's a political can of worms, and B, you might be convinced that the property tax base that generates the high school's revenues is likely to change, and so basic aid is going to improve in the future. If that's the board thinking, however, and we're not shifting toward a unified district with the same across-the-board revenues, I cannot ethically support the notion of a permanent change away from the 50-50 funding of San Rafael Central Administration. I fear this is a temporary solution that's likely to have larger long-term negative impacts. The high school district, like us, they've been tackling problems regarding graduation rates, equity of access for Latino and low-income students. They're not alone in this effort. Bridging the achievement gap and improving equity of access is an issue that the elementary district has been actively addressing as well. Eventually, the students from the San Rafael Elementary District arrive in our high schools. We cannot afford to underfund our poorest elementary schools if we are to achieve the success that we desire for all students. Students have up to 10 years of schooling in TK8 classes before they arrive for their up to 4 years of high school. Students who are prepared and feel like they have a chance to be successful are far less likely to drop out. We all know this. We must invest early if we really want success. If we wait, it will be too late. So, since the high school budget committee, in my opinion, didn't really have the legitimate authority to suggest this 38-62 split, it clearly falls on the board to examine this issue and decide what's equitable. You're not just rubber stamping what that committee decided, you're making the decision. So, I propose that the board either limit the shift in funding of the central administration to something different like a 45-55 split going forward, or limit the shift to a 40-60 split for this coming budget school year alone, and convene a joint elementary and high school task force which would examine the following items in order to determine an equitable long-term split. Number one, a time study of the central administrative duties between high school and elementary. Number two, the increase in administration in both size and compensation in recent years. Number three, the comparative lack of growth of classified hours and compensation, especially at the elementary school sites in the past decade. Number four, the increased amount of certificated staff assigned to program supports rather than classroom instruction in recent years. Number five, equitable access to enrichment in all of San Rafael School, STEM, PE, the arts. Number six, the costs and benefits of inter-district transfers as was mentioned by SRFT, both approved and non-approved. And finally, a cost-benefit analysis of unification of the high school, the elementary, and Middle Creek. I know this is a whole bunch of stuff, but I really think if we get together and we look at these issues, we can figure out what's fair going forward. The elementary certainly, like if administration is spending a ton of time on us, then we should pay for it. But we'd like to actually have that information. And I think if we look closely at these things, I think we'll all be more unified and we'll feel better about these decisions. Okay, so thank you very much for your service and thank you for hearing me out.
Thank you.